everyone, Comic Reviewer here. This time reviewing on Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. Now, as you know, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is a 1998 direct-to-video animated mystery comedy horror film that was meant to be the first film in the Scooby-Doo direct-to-video film series, as well as trying to be more darker, more kind of a serious version of Scooby-Doo. And I would say I can definitely see it being darker, and it's sort of stepping away from the more lighter tones and non-comical takes. Now, the premise of the film is meant to be about Mystery Inc. getting back together after Fred decides to set the gang up when Daphne decides to hunt down a real ghost story. And we kind of see how the gang have gone their separate ways after getting tired of solving the same mysteries every time. We see how Daphne and Fred are working in a sort of more news background story. We see how Velma works at a kind of bookstore, and we see Shaggy and Scooby going from job to job. And I think this really does work, because we do see how the gang are trying to deal with their new lives, seeing how they're kind of dealing with the sort of new responsibilities. We see how after hit and miss stories, we see how they're led by a young woman known as Lena in New Orleans, Louisiana, and leads them to Moonstar Island, where her boss, Simon, explains about the ghost activities that's been going on. And I would say it's kind of obvious to who the villains are. I mean, when you watch this years later, it's kind of obvious to who the villains are gonna be. But I think what the film gets right at, it kind of shows it being kind of like a sort of found footage, kind of cabin in the woods story. And you can kind of tell some of the gang don't really believe any of this is real. We see how some of them have their suspicions. Like, you can kind of tell Velma and Fred are kind of passing on what could really be going on, what could be really behind this. And we kind of see how Shaggy and Scooby are kind of thrown into the sidelines, but not badly. And I think what the film gets right at, it really knows how to take a more darker tone. Because when you've got the zombies coming out the ground, when you've got the villains showing up in their kind of more cat-like form, you can kind of tell the animators and even the story artists really wanted to go darker with the storyline. And this also did remind me of Digimon Season 3. Well, Digimon Season 1 and 2 was like the never-ending story. Digimon Season 3 was more of a darker version. Or it's like looking at the Pokemon Adventures manga. Well, Pokemon could be non-serious at times. Pokemon Adventure shows you what could happen if you have these cute little creatures as your own personal weapon. And I would say as well, I think what also the film gets right at is showing you this kind of typical horror story. But I think they really do show you how the gang do get roped back in. And I know when you've got the next film, Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, it kind of implies the gang were getting back full time, and after the events of Zombie Island, they kind of got their sparks relit in and decided to solve mysteries again. And I know in 2019, we did get Scooby-Doo Return to Zombie Island. That was kind of a divided fan base. And I think I can kind of see why, because Return to Zombie Island was just a sequel that didn't really need to be made, because we didn't really need to know about Morgan Moonscar's treasure. We didn't really need to know what happened after the events of the first film. It ended there and there. And I know Return to Zombie Island does alter some things from the film, implying that Return to Zombie Island follows a different continuity from the first film. But I think for me, it's obvious to who the villains are going to be, but you know they're definitely going to go darker with the storyline. So I think to me, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island definitely deserves 2 thumbs ups. Still good and still alright. So, Comic Reviewer here, signing out.